individuals and entities made very public by way of registering their names. I think what we'll see over time is that the international community, in sharing the information of who is on their register, will be well served in terms of, again, information sharing, intelligence gathering, and greater transparency into how we apply these sanctions from a global perspective.
So we also have those obligations that we were drawing on international intelligence or information, that we are open with our partners around the public release of those names. But with this bill, we'll also have the ability to have a broader range of individuals who may be covered by travel bans, and that may actually be drawn from our own work rather than just on international partners as well. And it's a broader category of people that could be included too. I see some questions that might be on that. Yeah, Thomas.
How far could the sanctions go? I mean, you've said they'll apply to you could apply them to countries supporting the conflict. China and India, for instance, might be considered to be propping up the ruble or voting alongside or voting in a helpful way to Russia and the UN. Could it apply to countries that aren't directly involved in the conflict but are supporting Russia while it wages war?
Well, the framework is broad in its ability to consider a range of things. However, through the regulation-making process, there will be thresholds within that to consider as to how far a sanction would apply.
Is it regrettable that economic sanctions could cause hardship to everyday Russians?
I think one of the things that personally I find really disturbing amongst all of the devastation we're seeing from the invasion itself is the disinformation within Russia, particularly when you see those in Ukraine who have family members in Russia that they are explaining to them what is happening and their own family members don't believe it. There is a role to play for citizens knowing what is happening at the hands of their own country's leadership. So the question around whether or not you want to impact on the everyday lives of Russians, ultimately we want to impact on those who are decision makers. We want to create influence around those decision makers, and having the Russian people themselves fully aware of the situation equally would have a huge impact. And there, the impact of state television and state media into other countries is really important as well.
Sadly, Russia is the aggressor, and their aggression will not only impact severely and harmfully on the Ukrainian people, but also their own people, and there's no winner in war.
Putin's on the travel ban list, obviously, he's at the top of the list. Do you know if he's ever actually been to New Zealand or holidayed in New Zealand?
No, I couldn't answer that for you, but I'd happy to find out.
Do you think it'll be disappointing?
I think he's probably focused on other things right now, but nor would I diminish the importance of a collective stance either. Sorry, did I come back to Jessica? They're not coming down.
Minister, where are you at with the expulsion of the Russian ambassador? Are you any closer to doing that, and at what point would you look to do that?
Yeah, I think there are some international obligations that we need to be mindful of, the Vienna Convention, but also legislation in relation to the diplomatic corps. What we have done is called the ambassador in, expressed our significant concern and distress about the actions Russia has taken. We also have people still in Russia who require, our support or consular support, so we have to weigh all those things up as we take next steps. I think the overall point, however, is that this the aggression that Russia is currently showing will require strategic endurance. And so this approach to targeted sanctions will enable us to ramp up a range of sanctions in response to Russia's aggression, or hopefully wind back in the event that international diplomacy and the weight of international diplomacy will actually bring Russia to a point of conceding.
Charlie,
there's been some concerns raised that once a general autonomous sanctions regime is in place, that it could come under pressure from the likes of our traditional Five Eyes partners over our approach to China, for example. How do you ensure that that doesn't happen?
By maintaining the same independent foreign policy that we've had for decades. But we do want to give consideration to how we can embed within that any future regime both that independence, but also draw, as we have in the past, from a multilateral approach. And that's why, whilst we've had the autonomous sanctions regime issue,